Welcome back, pod people. Today's guests are actually three people, the most I've had on the podcast so far. We have Kris Phipps, a producer, Stacey Bell, another producer, and Chris McInroy, a writer, director, producer, who, between the three of them, have made a collection of short films that I really enjoyed. The first one that I watched is called Guts, and then I watched several more, Bad Guy Number 2, Death Metal, We Summoned a Demon, and actually, I misspoke. The first one that I watched, I didn't even know it was made by these guys, which was the One Time in the Woods segment in the Scare Package anthology, which is on Shudder right now. These are all really interesting, pretty different from each other, but also with some very obvious commonality between them. Short films, and the thing that jumped out to me the most as making them different from a lot of the other horror short films that I've been watching recently is that a lot of short films that I see are really just sort of like one scene or one snippet from perhaps from a larger implied narrative, whereas these are really complete short films in that they have like a beginning, middle, and end. Less so We Summoned a Demon, but the other ones, especially like Death Metal, there's really an introduction, the rising action, and then a conclusion, as opposed to here it's just one little glimpse into a creepy larger world. So I would love it if you guys could talk a little about how you decided on the structure for these films and whether they were intended as this sort of miniature version of a feature-length film. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I never really had a plan to make any of them into features. So I wanted them to be standalone stories. Like a lot of short films, you can see the problem is that they try to shove a whole feature into a short film.
Well, jumping onto what Chris was trying to say is, and I totally agree with him, is that one of the things that I think that a lot of people try to do with their short films is they have a feature on their mind and they're trying to really shove a feature length story and concept into the format of a short. And I've done that personally. And you can always see kind of the issues that pop up with that, especially when it comes to the payoff for a film. And Chris is just really has a unique talent for making a short because the best shorts, it seems like, really are their own thing. It really is a different type of storytelling than a feature, and Chris is just one of the best at that. And I actually think that that's one of the things that makes Chris really special when it comes to short films is his his control over that part of his storytelling. He just really has a knack for, I think he has a knack for everything, but in regards to short film format, he really knows what a short is. So I think that's one of the keys to what he does.
Cool. Yeah, so for anyone listening who doesn't necessarily know what you're talking about in terms of like what a short is, could you expound on that a little? Like what sorts of things, when you say people trying to cram a feature-length film, that sounds kind of like the thing I was saying was a good thing that you guys were doing, where you've got the beginning, middle, and end, the rising action and all that. So I'm curious if you could help differentiate it in my mind.
Sure. Well, it's actually, it's kind of a gray area there, but what a funny thing, at least in my opinion, is what happens is within a feature, you're trying to shove that whole arc of a feature into a short. And the funny thing that ends up happening with that sometimes is in your sort of desire to shove a full-length story, you end up really only getting a partial story. You end up getting less of a story as you're trying to put in more story. It's a funny thing that happens, and again, it's happened to me, and so I'm not calling out anybody else. I've done it too, and so when Chris thinks about things, he does think about things in a way of a snippet of time, but the way he composes a short and composes those couple of scenes, you're feeling like you're getting a whole complete story, because you are, but you are getting a snippet, but that snippet is complete rather than an incomplete big chunk of story, if that makes any sense. So he concentrates on the small, but he takes you for a ride from beginning to end within that little small space of storytelling. I hope that made sense, but yeah, it's funny how when you try to shove in a larger story, you end up actually getting less. So again, and that's, I think, one of Chris's great strengths.
Yeah. Stacey, I noticed you smirking at a few lines there. I'm curious if you have something you'd like to add on that particular subject.
Well, I watch a lot of shorts, so I have a good sense of what makes them work and what doesn't. And I mean, one of the biggest challenges, well, there's two, I think, off the top of my head: character development and landing the story are really difficult, and for shorts, short filmmakers sometimes. I think Kris does a really good job with the character development in particular. Like, you know who these people are through the way they talk, the way they dress, like all the little details make it pull that character together a lot easier for you. So there's not a whole lot of story that needs to be told, because so much of it is just their personalities are there, and the actors really do a great job bringing those characters to life. So that's a really big strength, I feel, for Kris's shorts. And also just, being able to end the short in a way that makes sense, because I feel like a lot of shorts, the biggest problem is they run out of time, or they run out of steam or something, and they just kind of don't stick that landing in a way that really satisfies the viewer. So Kris, I think, excels at that with his shorts. So it really is a winning combination.
Yeah, getting a good, satisfying ending is one of the most difficult things to do in storytelling, but also one of the most important things. I know when watching, for instance, Bad Guy Number Two, I saw the ending coming from a mile away, but I still really wanted to actually see it play out. And then when I did, it was very satisfying. Uh, Reminded me of an opening scene in, I forget which David Lynch film, but one where we know that, like, they're following somebody out of a restaurant, and we know that there's going to be this, like, creepy jump scare when we finally see the creepy person's face, because the characters have explicitly talked about it leading up to this. And then it's still incredibly satisfying when the person actually does turn around and we see them. I think that sort of ending can be a good way to handle what you're saying, of making something that's actually satisfying rather than just petering out the way that I sort of am at the end of this little monologue. You also mentioned characterization, and yeah, I think that one of the most important things that separates good, especially horror films, from, or like really great horror films from just good ones, is how much the audience cares about the characters, which can either be positive feelings, like we really love this character and want to see them succeed and survive, or they can be negative feelings, where we hate a character and want to see them get their comeuppance. And in a feature-length film, you have, a good long chunk of time to get the audience to know and care about and have strong feelings about these characters. Whereas in a short film, you really only have a few minutes, which is barely enough time to meet somebody in real life. So can you talk a bit about what techniques you use to get the audience to, be emotionally invested in characters in such a short period of time? And in particular, how does that differ from working on a feature-length film? And Kris, let's see if you have working audio now. Nope, I'm getting a head shake.
I have a bad feeling. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can actually.
Oh, okay, great. I'm sorry, I missed the question. Was it about? I've never made a feature, so it's a little difficult for me to answer that.
Well,
but
then
I will say that I always heard that directing is like 80% casting. So I look for a lot of actors that I feel like can fit the role, and like Stacey said, just kind of put them in the right wardrobe and get them in the right hairstyle.
Okay, yeah. So it's interesting. I asked this question to most people that I interview, and while there's a lot of overlap in the answers, there's also a lot of diversity, and it's always interesting to me to see who goes on in the direction of, yeah, it's all about getting good actors who fit the characters and trusting their decisions, versus no, it's all about the script and what explicitly is there on the page that you then transfer to the screen. So it sounds like you're leaning more in the direction of getting actors who fit the characters, and then how much do you leave to them in terms of creative decisions versus how much is like strictly dictated?
It varies. I know a lot of it will be scripted already, and then but for example, like on We Summon a Demon, we were running out of time to do a gag where jabbed a knife into his hand to get blood and put a little cross on his forehead, and I'm like, we don't have time for this gag, can you guys just make something up, please, that's funny? And he came out with that whole job.
Sorry, you're breaking up again. You said he came out with that whole
John Travolta gag where he was like chanting.
Yes, yeah, that was a pretty funny little bit. Interesting to hear that was improvised. Cool. Yeah, so your short films, or at least the ones that I've seen, all have a sort of a blend of horror and comedy, with a lot of the comedy coming from just sort of how gross and intense and sort of incongruous the horror elements are, and sudden and shocking. So horror comedy can be a genre that's really difficult to get right, because if it leans too far in the comedy direction, then the horror parts aren't horrifying, and if it leans too far in the horror direction, then the comedy parts just seem incongruous. So I'm wondering if you guys could talk a bit about how you strike the right balance there.
I could try again here before I see if my microphone sticks on, but
Sure. Nope, sorry, it's not working.
All right, guys.
No worries. Christopher and Stacey?
Yeah, Stacey, since you're a programmer for several festivals, maybe you could talk a little bit about that balance and what you see.
Yeah, it is a delicate balance. And I think most horror comedies do lean one way or the other. They're a little bit more comedic, or they're a little bit more horror, with elements of comedy woven into it. Timing is really important. Making sure that the jokes play out the way they should, and the delivery of them, to kind of break the tension of the horror scenes. It can be hard to do, but it's definitely my favorite subgenre. So I think it's, when it's done well, it's perfection in my mind. Like Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a fantastic one.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as when you said some lean more towards horror, some lean more towards comedy. I was thinking, oh, okay, let's take two similar premise movies, Evil Dead and Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Evil Dead leans more towards horror, Tucker and Dale leans more towards comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it doesn't have to be a perfect 50-50 balance. It can go a little bit more in either direction, but there does have to be a give and take, for it to work well. If it's to satisfy the audience. Again, if it's too comedic, people are going to say it's not scary enough, it's not bloody enough, it's not appealing to that core horror crowd. But the flip side, if it's too horrific and the comedy doesn't work well, it's a little disconcerting. It kind of pulls you out of the story, and it it just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's really hard to strike that balance, but it can be done, and it when it does work, it really does work.
Yeah. One thing that I thought really helped your shorts work in that regard is that the comedy is all either physical comedy or really like sort of character focused or um, situational. If there isn't this sort of meta comedy thing going on that a lot of horror comedies sort of lean on, where they're like, aha, we are in a thing that has tropes. Let us either observe the fact that these tropes are happening or just really lean into them. Instead, your comedies bits come from either absurd characters or the specifics of the situation, like in Guts, where um, there's this incredible, disgusting, farcical setup, and then also these ridiculous characters are acting within that setup. But it never winks at the camera, so it never like brings us out of what's going on. I thought that worked really well. Chris, are you with us?
Okay, I think I'm with you this time. How about that?
That's working. Let's.
Okay, good. Yeah, so just on top of that, yeah, I try to play all my movies like they're dramas instead of like comedies where everything is kind of over the top, and I let the situations be the funny parts and the absurdness of what's going on. And I try to get all the actors to play more like it's a serious tone movie, and that way I'm able to get them all on the same page as well. And the gags are kind of like punchlines, I guess. Like you have a setup. You have like a little middle part, and then the gore is like it hits them with the joke.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree that most of the ones that I watched seemed the actors were playing everything very straight, but specifically Guts, it did seem like there was some deliberate over the top, like unrealistic portrayal of unrealistic representation of emotional reactions in a way that is funny. Was that something you were aiming for, or something that just ended up happening, or?
I think the reactions to the gore gags were kind of wanting to be a little bit bigger, just to like kind of punch it up a bit. But yeah, I think too, like having everything be practical and the actors can react to the real things, like getting sprayed in the face, they're going to have some sort of natural reaction to it anyways.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And speaking of the special effects, that is definitely a running sort of uniting theme going through your movies, where even if I didn't even if I wasn't aware that it was the same people making them, there's a sort of unifying visual theme in that regard, which makes me suspect that either you guys work with the same special effects people or do a lot of the special effects yourself. Tell me a little bit about the creative process there, if you will.
Yeah, we haven't really worked with the same people on each movie. It's always been somebody different.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I guess Death Metal and Demon had the same guy, which was Eric Zapata, he was really, really good, but he got busy. So we kind of move around a lot. But I think it's just, we want to make fun things. We're influenced by horror movies from the 80s. We want to have fun on set. Everybody wants to gather around and watch a head explode. It's just makes it really fun. And also, like, I'm into trying to gross the audience out a bit, It's fun hearing them groan and like clap and look away, and it's just something I'm kind of addicted to. And I don't know if it's like a big deep meaning to it. It's just fun.
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit again, but hopefully waiting a moment will let that resettle. Yeah, you definitely grossed me out in parts, which is a bit difficult to do, so congratulations. In particular, I found your section in Scare Package was the most disturbing part of Scare Package, and anything where somebody's face melts gets to me, and you have a lot of people's faces melt. That's definitely seems to be a recurring trope. You mentioned being inspired by the practical effects of 80s films, and the incredible amount of like slime and sticky goo in your practical effects reminded me of trauma films like The Toxic Avenger, where they use a specific product called Ultra Slime a lot. And I'm wondering, did you guys use that specific stuff, or how did you get all of that incredibly gross, sticky practical effects going?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We used ultra,
Yes.
just ultra slime and food coloring, I guess, to make it green like that. Yeah.
Green or red in the case of things like guts, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, we used it on guts as well. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Is it as hard to clean up? I've never worked with it myself, but is it as hard to clean up as I've heard, or do you just hose yourself down?
Chris, why don't you take that?
Yeah, it's awful. It's we've had to use power washers before and come in and like spray down buildings after we've shot some stuff, and sometimes it's taken days, and sometimes we've had to just kind of like get in the car and drive off. Like it's just like sometimes it's impossible to clean up. Yeah, so it is.
Goodness.
I think that's why I shot death metal all outside, and one time in the woods I wanted to do all outside just so we didn't have to do the cleanup.
Is it all biodegradable then?
Yeah, it definitely is, and especially because I've gone back and shot like where we shot one time in the woods and it was all gone. So it was but yeah, it's the slime's made out of cellulose, which
Okay.
you know, which is biodegradable, and yeah, it's just some of those colors will stain like a hardwood floor or a wall. Really, I mean, there are certain surfaces that when you get on it, it's over, you know. So even the blood that people make where they say that, oh, this is easily cleanable, it never works out for us. All blood is final, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making it with food dye, that is a dye. It's intended to permanently stain things. So,
Yeah,
you're gonna have difficulty with that.
The puddle, the puddle that we made for We Summon a Demon when all the rooster blood fell on Guy, that is still at that warehouse. It wouldn't come off.
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
that was a tough scene because we had a 5-gallon bucket that was filled all the way to the brim with that blood. And Eric Zapata, our great makeup artist on that one, was a little shorter to be able to get over Kirk and really make that pour. So so I had to do it. But the scary thing about that pour was that it was so heavy, you know, I was kind of unbalanced, but then you didn't know where it was going to hit when you turned it, and you just had to kind of go. So we really got lucky on that one. But yeah, I haven't been back to that location, Chris, but I'm not surprised at all that puddle is still there and will probably be there for life.
Well, yeah, and the thing about some of those gags too is you have to be able to get it in one take because there's no where to reset. So Chris had all the pressure. He need to hit this right on his forehead in the first take and make sure it gets some in his mouth so Kirk gargles a little bit. He nailed it.
Yeah, the movie guys were smiling on us that day for sure.
Nice. And is the fake blood that you use for things like that, where it doesn't need to be super sticky and stretchy, is that just corn syrup and food dye, or?
I'm not sure what Eric's recipe is. You know, a lot of artists have different recipes, but it actually, like, I've used a lot of blood over the last couple of years that did not have corn syrup in it. Quite a bit actually. But I probably, but yeah, the corn syrup stuff, that stuff really scares me. That's the stuff that's really like, just like I say, that'll never go away. Like, I've got corn syrup dried chunks of blood here that are as hard as like glass. It's just there forever. Wow. But yeah, Chris, in all his variety of gags, has got to have some thin blood. He's got to have some thick gel blood, and he's got to have his slime all ready to go. So he's got to have all kinds of different consistencies there to mess people up.
Yeah. Interesting. Man, I would have assumed that corn syrup would be relatively easy to clean up with just like a mop, but
so corn syrup dries, and when you pour corn syrup, you pour corn syrup out onto a floor, it starts to gel, and then certain types of corn syrup just turn rock hard if you don't get them up. So it's kind of like to me it's kind of like cleaning up glue off the floor. And so it's definitely not something, at least for me, that you can just get a mop and just go for. It's like maybe some Gooby Gone or something like that will get it up. But I've had to use a hammer and a chisel to get up corn syrup blood. So
wow.
so yeah, but when you finding a good makeup artist that's got a good blood recipe, one that is the easiest to clean up but also looks great, then you've found a really great artist, and you want to.
Yeah, the tip I remember reading in one of Lloyd Kaufman's books is to mix a little detergent in with it, which makes it so you don't want to get it in your mouth or eyes, but apparently makes it much easier to clean up. Cannot speak to that from personal experience.
That's what they say. Yeah, and I know some blood makers. There's a couple in Austin where we're from where they put detergent in it, and you can tell when it's in there when you look at the blood even. But again, for us, it's never easy to clean up, and I wish it was. But yeah. It's just, and then of course the Evil Dead blood has milk in it, and there's all kinds of different recipes. But like I say, Chris likes to use a variety of consistencies and colors. And I was looking at the clip from Guts the other day again, where our actress Sydney turns around in the chair and her face lands in the guts and peels away, and all that blood and slime just kind of, that's Chris needs a lot of variety of different goo and fluids to make his films work.
Yeah, we have to have stuff that's safe to go in the mouth as well, and stuff that not necessarily needs to go be safe for that. But there's always, this is the mouth blood cup, this is the regular blood cup.
Yeah. Okay, there's a pause that'll hopefully make it easy for me to find in editing. Can you guys hear that car behind me? Is that showing up on the microphone? Great. My neighbor is warming up his truck, I believe. Yeah, it was that specific shot in Guts that really made me think, like, this is ultra slime. I wonder how much time it took that actor to get all of that stuff off of her face once the shoot was over, because that does not look pleasant. Commitment to the art right there.
Chris, do you remember how long it took her to get? What I do know is, first off, that's Sydney Huddleston, and we love her. She's such a great actress. She's so funny, but she had broken her nose recently before we shot that film, and so she was concerned, and so were we, about that turn. And but when I look at the clip, she really goes for it. It really looks like her face just slams into that. Of course, it's rubber, but still, it looks like she just really committed to that. And yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, we shot that one twice, because the first take we had her use her other cheek, and you couldn't quite see the pullback as much. And then the reset really wasn't that long. I would say maybe like 10 minutes to clean her face off. And then we did it again, and she used the other cheek, and that was the take that made it into the movie.
Nice. Yeah, well, I'm surprised to hear you were able to reset that shot that fast, because of how difficult that stuff can be to clean, that you guys were just talking about.
Yeah, luckily we had a great special effects team and a hair and makeup team, and we were really close to the bathroom, and there was a shower, and so we were pretty good on this one for reset times.
Nice.
sometimes the slime is easier to clean than the blood. I know we're getting into like the weeds with all these different fluids, but the scary thing about all of that was that we shot this in a church. Guts was shot in a church, and it was a working church. And, you know, we had to make sure that this church was ready for Sunday service when we were out of there. So anytime anything of a fluid nature was brought in, I think we all started to sweat a little bit, but somehow we made it work. Tarps are very important.
Yeah, I remember they said, so we took everything out of that church and brought in our own cubicles, but they said something like, these carpet squares, they don't make them anymore. So if you guys get something on here, we're gonna have to replace this whole room. Like, oh my God. So Kirk was carrying around a big piece of cardboard under his guts in between all the takes. Anything that would drip would just catch it on the cardboard.
Nice. That's very conscientious of you. Yeah, so when you said that Guts was filmed in a church, I suddenly did a double take in my memory, be like, wait a second, isn't it set in an office building? So
oh, I'm sorry. It's filmed in a church. The location is a church, but we had to turn that into an office building, make it look like an office building. We had to build all of those cubicles and bring them in there. And yeah, but no, I mean, when it wasn't an office building for Guts, it's usually a place of worship. Yeah.
Wow. So how did that come about? Why shoot in this church rather than like some office building?
Well, we looked for office buildings, but what happened was that we had a studio with a soundstage that was connected to this church. Actually, the church was right beside it.
Okay.
And, but our studio looks very studio-y. Like when you walk in, there's a psych floor and there's soundproofed walls. So it would be a lot harder to bring that to like a full office look. But when we started looking around close to the studio, when we saw the inside of the church and saw that in a way, yes, it's a church, but the floors and the walls, they all kind of, when you looked at them at certain angles, it was very easily, you know, looked very like typical, like 90s, like office spacey, you know, and
Interesting.
So yeah, so me and Chris were like, man, if this could work, but how do we talk a church into doing this? So yeah, that was the challenge after that, but it all worked out.
I mean,
yeah.
the good thing about it is the story can be spun where it's about bully awareness and overcoming bullies and not being a bully. And so we kind of went that spin with what the story was when we were telling the church about what it was about.
It's the brave story of a man with a physical disability overcoming his bullies.
Exactly.
And then
and I was like, I said, if you Google me, you're gonna see a lot of demon things, but you know, just know there's just and I'm just joking around, and it's more cautionary tales about what not to do.
Well, there's a question. What order did you make these in, and like over what sort of time period? Because I referred to them as a collection earlier, but that's really not true. They're not all like part of the same project. They're separate projects.
Yeah, so right? Bad Guy number 2 was 2014. That was when I started kind of making these short films, and then it went death metal, and then we summoned a demon, and then the scare package segment, and then Guts, and then we have this new one called We Forgot About the Zombies that's playing at South by Southwest, actually.
Oh, cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that you have not done any feature-length films, and these things that you all listed were just, these things that you just listed were all short films. So do you have any intention of at some point making feature-length stuff, or do you really like the short film like medium, or tell me about that?
Well, I love short films, but yes, the ultimate goal is to make feature films. But I just always want to be making something, whether it's a short or whether it's whatever. I just feel a lot better and getting that creative outlet and having fun. And I do have 3 feature scripts that I'm trying to get made, and we'll just see which one lands first.
Cool. Yeah, so most of these ones that you listed, they were all released independently, but the the Woods one was part of Scare Package, which is an anthology film made by a variety of different filmmakers that, like I said earlier, is available on Shudder. So tell me a bit about how the process of making a short film for an anthology like that works. Like, do you still own the rights to it? Do you get some points off of the back end, or did somebody just like give you a set amount and now they own the rights to it? How does that work?
Yeah, so they reached out to me and asked if I would make a short film for them for their segment. So it was the original concept that I wrote specifically for the Scare Package. So yeah, they it's all their stuff. Gave me a budget and then just handed it over and kind of walked away, and then saw it on Joe Bob Briggs and Shudder.
Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, so have you interacted directly with Shudder at all? I mean, me and my audience there's a lot of Shudder fans there because of, it's the premier online horror platform, at least at the moment. Have you interacted with them at all directly, or is it all through the people who made Scare Package?
Yeah, I haven't interacted with them directly. It's all been through the people that made Scare Package, and but it's been really cool. Just having all the people that are Shudder fans kind of reach out and say they like my segment, and that type of stuff always feels good.
That's great. Yeah, it was definitely the one that stuck with me the most out of the set. It was the only one that really made me like cringe and flinch in reaction to how horrifying the stuff that was going on was. Sort of Tar Man looking antagonist there.
Oh my God, I love Tar Man. Thank you so much for saying that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think the only time that any of your effects have at all brought me out of the story was, and this is on me really, is in the we summoned a demon one, specifically the chicken killing that you were mentioning earlier, because my partner raises chickens and I have helped in the slaughter and butchery of chickens, and I'm like, that's not what it looks like when you kill a chicken. That's way more blood. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's the gag. It took me like a second and a half to realize what was going on, but
Yeah, that idea was just after playing some short films at film festivals and seeing them, and just knowing that programmers are going to want to get hooked in quickly. I was like, I'm just going to start with like a chicken just showering blood on someone's face, and hopefully that'll suck them in to want to watch the rest of the movie.
yeah. So Stacey, you mentioned earlier that you're involved in the programming selection at some sort of film festival. Did I hear that right?
Yes, I'm the programming chair at Nevermore Film Festival in Durham, North Carolina. I've been with them for like 15 years.
Oh wow, I used to
That's
live there.
coming up later this month, and I also am the lead shorts judge for Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio. So I've been working on that one for about the past 5 years, kind of juggling the two. They happen at different times of the year. So I like half a year working on one, and then I switch gears and work on the other. And yeah, that's how I sort of became involved with this crew here. Just seeing Chris McInroy's films being submitted to Nevermore in particular year after year after year, and they were always just great quality, totally my style of short film. So I grew to appreciate his style of filmmaking, and when I saw an opportunity to kind of slide in and assist, starting with Guts, I jumped on that.
Cool. Yeah. So can you tell me a bit about the selection process and what it's like working for a film festival? I'm going to be submitting my shorts to a film for the first time, or to a film festival for the first time later this year, and I'm curious to hear some of the inside baseball, as it were. What do people what do people in your position like to see? What annoys them?
Oh
Things like
God.
that.
I don't want to take over the whole podcast.
Oh, you've spoken less than the other folks. I want to have this be at least a little bit equitable.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, so So with Nevermore, I screen both shorts and features. So kind of watch the majority of everything that comes in. We've got a very large committee now, so I don't personally watch everything. I'm kind of the second tier. So a lot of people will watch everything initially, and then based on their overall average ratings, we use Film Freeway pretty much exclusively at this point. So we
Everybody seems
can,
to, from what I hear.
yeah, I mean, when I started, it didn't exist. I mean, nothing was really, there wasn't an online platform like that. So we received DVDs, two copies of DVDs, and we handed them off to other committee members, and we emailed around our votes, and we tabulated things. It was very challenging in the early years, but over time it's just become much easier with Film Freeway. But yeah, we get our submissions, we open for submissions, and things come pouring in, and our committee tackles through that. We all jump in and give our ratings and give our opinions. It's great if you have a diverse committee. We do have that on Nevermore. On Nightmares as well, we have multiple people looking at all the submissions, so we get a sort of, a female perspective, maybe a minority perspective, not just, one or two people kind of looking at everything and making those unilateral decisions. So it's a group process, but at the end of the day, it sort of whittles down to the lead programmers to look at those highest scoring films and make some hard decisions when it comes to how you're going to actually flesh out the programs, what makes sense, are there themes that are sticking together across multiple submissions. But yeah, I mean, different things work for different people, so it's I mean, there's an overall consensus, but then there's sort of a unique fit to each festival that's really important as well.
Cool. Since you mentioned both like feature length and short films, I'm gonna guess that especially for like first time submitters, short films are easier to get accepted than feature length films, just because if you have an hour and a half, you can fit 9-10 minute shorts or a single feature length film in there. Is that correct, or?
In a way it is, and in a way it isn't, because I mean, there's so much more involved in making a feature by nature. You get fewer feature submissions in a given year, whereas with people can make a short with very limited resources, with very limited budget, very limited crew. So I mean, you might get hundreds and hundreds of shorts and only be able to program 50, 60, 70 of them. And the opposite for features, you might get 50 features and you can program 12, or I guess it's pretty similar when I think about it. It ends up being the top 10 to 20% for a lot of the festivals, for the two festivals that I worked with, that actually get in. But it seems like the competition is a little less fierce with features. With shorts,
Interesting.
there's so many more, and they're getting so much better.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. If you'll excuse me for just a moment, my cats are starting to attack my sound equipment, insisting that I feed them. So I'm going to go do that, and I will return momentarily. Please forgive the interruption.
No worries. How's your little girl doing?
She's good. She's better. She's with her grandmother today. She had strep throat all week. Rough.
Strep throat's the worst.
Haven't had it since I was a kid, and I forgot how just incredibly painful it is. So it was. There's sick, and then there's sick and being in pain, and that's like for a mom, like, oh my God, to make it stop.
Now, dumb question, but is strep throat contagious? And the reason I asked that's probably the dumbest question ever, but the reason I asked that is because I got to thinking about, some things are like bacterial and other things, but I got to thinking about you and like whether like you were going to get strep throat or
Yeah,
so bad when the mom's trying to take care of somebody, and then it's like,
it's definitely contagious. It's bacterial and it's spread through saliva and like coughing or drinking after somebody. And I mean, the good thing is the antibiotics make it so that you're not contagious after like a day and a half or so of taking antibiotics. So I've passed that point and somehow I managed to not get it. I'm always shocked when I don't get whatever she has.
Your immune system's probably super strong, just like having to deal with stuff like that.
I don't know. I feel like I get a lot of things too. I get a lot
Yeah.
of colds throughout the year. But I probably fight a lot off as well because I don't get sick every time she gets sick. So
But she is feeling better.
yeah. Made it back to school finally on Friday. She was home. She missed 7 out of 10 days of school because she had a cold the week before, was out, and then like as soon as I sent her back for a day or two, she came back home with strep throat, was out again.
Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's weird. It's weird. I can hear you guys totally fine, but Thomas is all choppy for me the whole interview. I don't know.
Oh no.
Okay, well, we can hear you. We can hear you really good since you. And great note by Stacey to turn your video off. Ever since then, we can hear you real good.
Okay. I
I
switched to my phone and turned my Wi-Fi off. I don't know if something happened to my Wi-Fi when the ice storm happened last week, but like it's been kind of choppy.
Yeah.
Also, if you're having any difficulty hearing people, I do recommend turning on the subtitles. There's real-time closed captioning, and it's remarkably accurate and speedy, and does a good job of separating out like who is saying what and everything like that. I didn't hear what he said, but I saw something about my audio being choppy.
Oh yeah, I was just saying like your camera is choppier than Chris and Stacey's for some reason.
Interesting. On my end, of course, my camera's crystal clear and everything.
Yeah.
It's just showing me what I'm, recording, not what it's transmitting. Chris is slightly blurry. Stacey is very clear and crisp. So interesting how it's not all consistent in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Stacey, sorry to keep harping on this film festival subject, but that is a really interesting one that nobody that I've had on the show before has been involved with from your side of things. So is there any advice that you would give to new filmmakers? A lot of the people who listen to this are themselves filmmakers, and so this is a really interesting perspective that I'm sure people will appreciate hearing. Any like amateur mistakes that people make a lot, or faux pas when submitting, anything like that?
Well, I mean, I've already mentioned the story, and like not being able to land the short is really a very common problem. There's always shortcomings that filmmakers will face. Maybe they don't have the money to get the equipment they need or do the best job on sound as they can. It's best to, I think, look at what you do have and what you can work with and really, play up those elements because, sometimes you can strike a fair balance there. You can make up for a little bit of, shaky acting if you've got a really phenomenal story that's well executed. There are things that can be forgiven based on the overall experience of watching it. Yeah, Chris mentioned no opening credits and long end credits. That's fair. Having too long of credits at the end of a short film is definitely something that can be annoying. Because your running time needs to be so tight to be fit into these blocks and these programs that if your credits are taking up 3 of the 7 minutes of your short, that's a big problem. That is definitely, yeah. When it comes to the submission process, knowing where you're submitting, spending that little bit of extra time and planning in your schedule when you create your film, build in time to research, where you want to submit your film, look at the festivals and read about them, try to watch some things that they've played in the past and see if you think that your short really fits into sort of their way of programming. If you've got some kind of like crazy experimental midnight sort of short, you want to make sure you're looking for a festival that programs that and they're not, all straight horror or something like that. So there needs to be some strategy involved and knowing who you're working with, getting familiar with that. Don't reach out and ask for waivers unless you really do have a special situation because festivals need a budget to run, and getting a lot of waiver requests when there's everybody could use that money for something else for their next project.
Yeah.
So
by waivers, you mean waiving the submission fee?
Right. Asking, a lot of times filmmakers will reach out and say, hey, you charge $100 to submit or $50 to submit, and would you consider giving me a waiver code? And a blind request like that doesn't go over well, just because we can't do that for everybody. Obviously, if you do have some real reason for it, some hardship that you can explain, and making that a real conversation that you have when you're emailing and not just kind of blankly begging to get a freebie. That helps. Writing a good cover letter when you're submitting to let them know, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I like your festival. I like the types of things that you program. I think I'll be a good fit. Getting some introduction in there helps. Going to the festival before you submit your film so you can meet people and they become familiar with you, that helps as well.
I imagine. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing all that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the future a bit. Kris, you mentioned that you have a few feature-length scripts, and I believe you said you have one more short that you're already perhaps starting on. Tell me a bit about what you've got coming down the pipeline.
Well, I have this short, We Summoned a Demon, and I have the short, We Forgot About the Zombies. So I am thinking about doing another We titled short for a little trilogy. We'll see how that goes. I don't really have the idea yet. But then also I've got, like I said, these 3 feature scripts. One's a werewolf horror comedy. One's like a straight horror revenge type movie. And then the other one is a feature of We Summon a Demon. And just kind of in the process of, getting feelers out there, trying to see if I can find some money and make one eventually. But I'm happy making short films as well. So we'll see how it goes. I work as a commercial director, so at least I'm doing what I love, and things are going okay.
By commercial, you mean like advertisements?
Yeah, advertisements.
Okay, nice. So I know some people are reluctant to talk about this subject, but you mentioned the budget that you're looking for making a feature film or making a short. Could you, if you don't mind, talk a bit about what were the budgets for these different shorts? What would you be looking for to make, say, We Summoned a Demon into a feature-length film?
So all the short films, I went to Kickstarter and did crowdfunding campaigns, and the most I kickstarted ever for any of them was 15,000 for Guts. And like death metal, we did like 8,000, and bad guy, we did 10,000. So that's kind of the budgets that we're playing with. There's also lots of in-kind donations and discounted rates of crew. So who knows how much it would really cost if I added it up, like for real. Like, I got a camera for free, got a location for free, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then for the feature film, like the werewolf one would be, I'm trying to keep it still indie level, and it would be under $1 million definitely, but more than like 150,000. And then the other 2, I'm trying to get more of a lower budget, just because I want to make something, and it's taken so much time to get a lot of money. And it's sort of like it's time to make something happen and try to raise it on my own. So I don't know, fingers crossed. I'm not an expert on this type of stuff. Obviously, I haven't made anything that's a feature length, so I'm out here learning. I'm learning as I go.
Cool. That's a good attitude to have about it. I've also used Kickstarter pretty extensively, and I was wondering about that because, I saw that you have Kickstarters, but I know from talking with a lot of other filmmakers who've run Kickstarters that is not the entire budget that they were working with. It was like a supplemental sort of thing. So that's really cool that is the budget that you were working with, because that really makes things transparent and puts like a pretty hard limit on the specific monetary resources that you have access to. Although that's also very interesting what you were saying about getting things in kind or getting things donated, because it's surprising how large of a portion of the resources available to independent filmmakers that sort of thing frequently is, and how little the public seems to know about that. And like, I'm reading Robert Rodriguez's book, Rebel Without a Crew, and this is the very famous story of the making of El Mariachi for $7,000, and everybody talks about that $7,000 figure, but then when I'm reading the book, it's like, oh well, we got all of these different locations donated for free. We got all of these guns borrowed for the day for free. We got all of these different things for free. And then the $7,000 almost entirely went to the literal film cost, like purchasing the film and purchasing like editing and everything like that. And so, especially on these lower budget independent films, I think specific dollar values can be misleading as to the amount of resources that someone has access to. So that's interesting to hear sort of my theories about that being supported by what you're telling me about your experience. So Christopher and Stacey, do you have specific plans for the future of what you want to make that are at all different from what Chris just said?
I'm working on a feature right now. It's an anthology, kind of a trick or treat where the segments kind of intermingle.
Oh, fun.
And we're about 3/4 of the way done with it. It's been like a 2-year project, and a lot of heavy FX stuff, a lot of monsters, and boy, we hope to be done with it this year. So that's taken up quite a bit of the time, and doing more shorts. We also do live events in the area here, which is actually how I met Kris so long ago. We used to do screening events with the Alamo Draft House, and now we're doing more sort of specialized events. So in a couple of months, it's the 50th anniversary of Exorcist. So we're showing The Exorcist in a church in the middle of downtown Austin. And then on the Garth Manor side, maybe a little publishing too, hopefully. Like, I'd love to do some like nonfiction, like film commentary books. And I've been working with Stacey a little bit on that. She's a great writer. So yeah, and then just being there for Kris, whatever he needs, and just like he said, kind of staying creative on my side of things.
Cool. If I can take a brief moment to shill for my own stuff, since you mentioned publishing and commentary books. Fear of the Unknown is a role-playing game that I wrote that is about schlocky horror movies. It's available now at fearoftheunknownrpg.com, and it includes extensive commentary from myself and like a videography of suggested films, and breaking down the structure of how horror movies work. So that is definitely something I would be interested in reading once you publish books like that. So please keep me in the loop.
That sounds amazing, man. I gotta check that out.
Well, thank you. Yeah, fearoftheunknownrpg.com.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't get fearoftheunknown.com. Somebody's squatting it. And Stacey, what does the future have in hold for you?
Well, I mean, I kind of got started in this because my work on festivals, I hadn't really had any direct filmmaking experience. So, Chris McInroy and Kris Phipps were very generous to let me, get involved in Guts and be on set and fly down to Austin and kind of get my hands dirty a little bit. So I mean, since then I've helped Kris Phipps out on his feature that he's working on. I'm, like he mentioned, doing some writing now. I mean, I've got more of a English major writing background, so I've done some feature sort of interviewing things locally. I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'm kind of far from them in Austin. So we look at ways that we can collaborate over distance, and right now that's starting to do some writing for the Garth Manor website, and working with Chris on that, kind of playing off of you know 15 years of experience working with indie horror filmmakers. I know a lot of people, like crazy little tendrils of people everywhere, pockets of filmmakers, directors, producers, effects people, horror writers. So, kind of looking at some of these people who are doing fun and interesting things, trying to think outside the box, ways that we can share lessons learned and help other indie filmmakers kind of make their process a little bit easier, give some insights into film festival submissions and things like that. So and we're really kind of putting together this little collaborative group, and we're all just helping each other out and playing to each other's strengths. And I'm going to continue doing that and working on festivals and being on set as much as I can as those opportunities
Cool.
arise.
Yeah, you sound like you're very well connected in that regard. That's really cool.
It's been fun.
Good. And speaking of, if things have been fun, if this has been enjoyable conversation, and you think anybody in that group would be interested in being interviewed about their work, I would love if you could put me in contact with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. And so then my last question for all of you is, where do you see the future of independent, especially genre cinema like this, going in the next few years? Just to keep the three of you from stepping on each other's toes, let's start with Chris McInroy. What do you think?
Well, I liked where it was going with the streaming services, with Shudder and with Screenbox and what's the other one, Arrow. But then they had some layoffs. I don't know what the future holds with that, but I'm hoping that it keeps going for genre, where there's a spot for the lower budget horror films to kind of get picked up and get seen. And also film festivals. There's so many good horror genre film festivals right now. It's really fun to just go meet people. There's a real good horror community out there. Everybody's cool and likes to support each other. So I'm just kind of hoping everything continues and no more layoffs.
Yeah. Unfortunately, since AMC owns Shudder, and AMC isn't doing too hot, they're laying folks off from Shudder. I don't know how Screenbox is doing. I've really only ever heard about them in the context of, like, they got Terrifier 2. But I'm curious if you, like, what do you think of platforms like Tubi? I say platforms like Tubi, but it's really just Tubi, which from what I see seems to be doing very well with the ad-supported model.
Full disclosure, I haven't watched anything on Tubi.
Fair enough. It's not the best place to go and search for, like, the newest big blockbuster, but it is an incredible place to go and find low budget independent stuff. There's just an enormous wealth of content on there. So I do recommend checking it out.
I think I am going to check it out. I'm a huge fan of The Gate, and a friend of mine was just telling me about I, Madman, and I've never seen it. It's the same director, and it is on Tubi, so I'm probably going to be checking that out soon.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can tell you that there's a lot of good indie horror on Tubi. A lot of people have gone there. It there seems to be, and I'm not really plugged into distribution, but that seems to be a common route that's becoming more popular to get your projects out there, get those eyes on them. So that's been interesting. I mean, I think, it's a really good time to be an indie horror filmmaker. I think it's incredibly in demand. Some things I've seen changing industry wise recently is, I used to be able to reach out to indie filmmakers and say, hey, I saw your film played at this festival. Looks like it might appeal to our festival audience as well. Would you, be interested in sending it over to us and letting us take a look? And I find that by the time something plays at a festival, and I reach out to them about potentially playing our festival 3 or 4 months down the road, they're like, oh, I mean, we might be out there. We'll be online. We'll be streaming in the next 3 months. We've already got a distributor. So, projects are being picked up quickly. And then you have things like, Skinamarink that just came out of nowhere and just exploded. And, it's very divisive. But there's this huge there's this huge demand for indie horror right now. So I just see it being a great time to be in this field and for us to be collaborating on these projects, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity and more eyes can see what you're doing than they could 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So everyone's looking for the next big thing, the next, explosive buzzworthy film. And that's where they start to look, is with, these people who don't have their names out there yet, the people who are still working to get into festivals. So I'm excited to see how things could change over the next few years.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting that you say that. Oh,
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
Christopher. Yeah, I'll
No,
get to
no,
get to you in just a moment. That's interesting that you say everybody's looking for the next big thing. Like Skinamarink obviously has been this huge phenomenon after it got so much buzz at the festivals, and then it got leaked online, and I managed to restrain myself and not watch it until it was legitimately on Shudder, um, because I I do see. I mean, everybody talks about, when something really makes a big splash, like Skinamarink or Terrifier 2 or Mad God, um, that becomes the topic of conversation for several weeks or even several months. But I also see a lot of stuff where people just sort of appreciate it, but it doesn't become this huge phenomenon like Scare Package, where I I mean, I certainly don't mean this in a derogatory way. Scare Package is not the next big thing. It's just a good, solid entry into the canon of film horror. And so I'm curious, do you see people just trying to find something that will really be that big breakout hit? Or are people also looking for that sort of solid standby sort of thing that's not going to be the talk of the entire country for 3 months, but will be, a satisfying thing to watch on a Saturday evening?
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for both, I think. I mean, anything that's gonna clear the budget and, bring in a profit is gonna be great. Whether it's something that's not the next big thing, that's just gonna be going to streaming, but it's gonna be popular, it's gonna be a hit. It's gonna be an enjoyable experience. People are going to want to go out and find it. I think that's one type of film that's gonna be picked up. But yeah, there is this sort of always looking for the buzzworthy thing. Barbarian was another one that came out this year that kind of, I try to not watch trailers because I just don't want to know. I want to be surprised in the experience. So I really didn't know much what to expect when I went into that one. But I mean, that was another one that just kind of came out of nowhere, I felt like, and Skinamarink as well, and then exploded. And that's what people want to talk about, and that's what people are looking for. Something that they can get their hands on maybe before everybody else does, so they can be part of that buzz and, go on Reddit and go on these forums and leave their reviews and kind of contribute to it. So, I mean, both the audience and I think, potential distributors are looking for things that are gonna I don't know, their expectations are much higher. People seem to be
Hmm.
disappointed more easily in horror as it becomes more popular. So really looking for that
Oh,
thing that's gonna kind of shake things up and get people
interesting.
talking.
Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that Barbarian was another big topic of conversation. It's a little surprising to me to put it in the same category as things like Skinamarink, because Skinamarink had a budget of like 15,000, which is very micro budget, and Barbarian had a budget of like 5 million, which is something that I would consider almost mid-budget these days, and had like people that I'd heard of before in it, and a director where I'd already, they had a mainstream success with Zach Kreger was one of the wise kids from that comedy troupe. Um, uh, but yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting seeing where these different things fall in the public consciousness like that.
Yeah, two totally different types of films that both made, very big splashes for
Indeed.
different reasons. I mean, it's true, coming from that comedy background too. I mean, that's sort of the novelty of Barbarian. It's like they made this from that background. I think everyone kind of went through that a little bit with Jordan Peele at first too.
That's
But
exactly what that made me think of. Yeah.
then you see what he's done over time, and it's like, oh, I mean, it can come out of a place where you wouldn't expect it from, and I think the audiences really like that sort of different angle and appreciate it. It's not the same thing that they've seen for so many years, and the same thing with like attacking tropes. That's kind of this similar thing. They're looking at trying to look at things differently, trying to kind of break out of that inside the box model that has been very common.
Yeah, sort of tying back into our earlier discussion of horror and comedy, that both of those really rely on sort of surprising the audience, but in a satisfying way that makes sense in retrospect. So I wonder if there's anybody who started in horror and then moved into comedy. I guess Leslie Nielsen, uh, started with things like Day of the Animals. Um, Everybody's got this like concentrating expression on the face, trying to come up with examples.
Kris Phipps, I know you probably got something in your head.
I my brain is like smoking right now, but nothing's coming out. So I was thinking about John Landis, but John Landis always did a lot of comedy from the beginning. But I think of something like Schlock, but Schlock is a comedy.
I was
And
gonna say I just watched Schlock for the first time yesterday. I was like, this is a John Landis film? Wow. Oh, this is the first John Landis film? Oh my goodness.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. So Kris Phipps, tell us what you see in the future of independent cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, for me, I know that there are different layers and different levels to filmmaking, but what I'm particularly interested in over the next couple of years are filmmakers who make content and own their own content and are in
Mm.
control of how that content is sold and how it's marketed, how it's promoted. There are filmmakers who are making films like the guys who made The Barn, like Drew Merverick, who made Pool Party Massacre. These filmmakers are making movies. They're building up their own fan base on their own, who continuously go to them to buy their content, to watch what they're doing next. So there are a group of filmmakers that are really looking at the filmmaking business almost like they're a band and kind
Oh,
of
that's an
building
interesting
up
metaphor.
an indie level, selling your merch. Because the kind of cold hard truth about it is that there are filmmakers who have films on Shudder or some other big streaming service, but they don't know how they're going to make their next movie, and they
Hmm.
don't know how they're going to pay their next monthly rent. But
Yeah.
I know other filmmakers who are making smaller movies, or maybe not even smaller. They are just controlling the distribution from the beginning, who don't want to do anything but continue to do it the way they're doing it. They don't
Yeah.
need any streaming service. They go to the conventions, they build up their fans online. They're essentially like a band now that doesn't need a record deal. And I feel like in the indie filmmaking world, that's a very important part of what's going on, because it's really shown itself to be financially sustainable for filmmakers who know how to market themselves properly. When you take a film and you sell it to Shudder, or another streaming service, the control is theirs. They'll come up with the poster, they'll figure out how much they want to put into marketing, they'll figure out what they want to say about your movie. And and I'm not saying they don't do a great job, but there is that other part of it where if you can control like how your movie is promoted, and basically the money of that, I think is very important for indie filmmakers if they want to really do this for a living. Because I think you can go from that level to bigger movies, just like you could if you went from, say, an indie film to Shudder to bigger movies after that. Either way, I think can work as long as you're putting out good content. So I think that kind of level of filmmaking where you're controlling the money, you're controlling the marketing, and you're doing a kind of a ground swell of kind of building up your fan base on your own. Not everyone can do it. It takes a lot of work, but it can create a situation where you're really able to control what's extremely important, which is that getting paid for your movie, getting paid for your content.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that a lot of filmmakers are looking into now, and we know personally many filmmakers that it's really working for.
That's really wonderful. I'm curious. I know of two techniques that people have told me that they're using, or that I've observed people using. I guess both. To do what you're talking about, where one is Patreon, where I know people who will have a Patreon that's just like, if you back me at this amount of money per month, you can watch all of the movies I've made. Like I know Steve Rosinski is doing that. He's the guy who made Paris Hell, and Len Kapuscinski is doing that. He's the guy who made like Swamp Zombies and Challenge of Five Gauntlets. And then the other route that I see a lot of people taking is Film Hub. You guys familiar with that? I'm going to guess probably so, but maybe not.
Yeah, I am familiar with Film Hub, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for anyone listening who's not, Film Hub is sort of like a distributor in that you submit your film to them, but whereas the traditional distributor contract is that they'll like say, okay, we purchase the rights to this for like some region like North America for some amount of time, like a year or 6 months or whatever, and we give you this amount of money, and then we try to recoup that money by selling it to streaming services or to theaters or what have you. The way that Film Hub works is if you format your film correctly, they will accept it, but they will not give you any money up front. Instead, they will try to sell it to streaming services and the like, and then they keep 20% of whatever money they make doing that and give you the other 80%. And that, as someone who's, grown up with computers and the like, that's the sort of thing that seems to me to be like a very obvious and sensible business model. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Christopher, and also Kris and Stacey, if you want to jump in on any of this about either of those business models, working with Patreon or working with Film Hub, or if you mean if there's some third option that lets you keep a hold of your rights.
Well, I can't speak for Film Hub, and I definitely know of Patreon and subscribe to some stuff on Patreon, but and I've seen some people really make a good business out of Patreon, but On the level of filmmaking that really I find interesting is at a budget level where you can actually put out physical content, because the horror genre in particular is a really fun genre to work in, because horror fans love physical content. It is the one genre where horror fans want the Blu-ray, want the limited edition VHS copy of the film, want the poster, and I'm one of those people. And so talking about talking about lower budget films that are 100,000 or under, let's say, we actually know filmmakers who, just based on Blu-ray sales at conventions online, have made all their money back and far beyond that. So
Wow.
physical media, I think, plays into it when it comes to the horror genre.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's especially, you have to have a little bit of a market, and you can build yourself up to it. A lot of these filmmakers are great marketers. They're great self-promoters. But again, I think that's where the band kind of comparison comes in. You have to be able to get yourself out there and be your own voice. Like, the cavalry isn't coming, as they say. You really have to get out there and kind of push who you are. And again, you can always start out this way and then move into and then hopefully through what you're able to do, move into bigger budgets, and then other levels of filmmaking business. But yeah, I mean, a guy like Drew Merverick, who made Pool Party Massacre, that guy makes a selection of limited edition Blu-rays. They sell out in a day. Then he makes 100 blue VHS tapes. They sell out in 20 minutes. And then he goes to the conventions, and all the fans know him. They know Pool Party Massacre. They know, and there's again, I mentioned The Barn, and there are several other filmmakers like this. And I just think, and when you talk to these guys and girls, they are just like, they're really happy with what they're doing. I spoke to one of them. We were at the Houston horror convention where GUTS played, and one of them told me, it's like, look, I mean, my film was only $50,000, but my friends, they're still trying to finish their films, and I made it, I control it, I put it out there, I made the money back, and now I've made enough money to make another one, and I'm paying my rent.
That's great.
And that's a lot farther than a lot of filmmakers who have their film on Amazon Prime or Tube. Definitely Tube. So it's just a matter of, again, there's layers to everything, and it's where you want to go. But I just think that's a really interesting part of the indie filmmaking world right now.
Yeah, I guess I should have guessed that about the physical media, because I know I really strongly hold the opinion that I like paper books a lot more than I like ebooks. But I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. But like on movies, I always just stream things. I really don't have a physical media collection at all in terms of movies. But apparently I'm in the minority in that regard.
I don't know that you're in the minority, but okay. I do think there's a large enough group of horror fans out there that love to collect horror, love special features, love the poster art. I mean, there's a reason that vinyl has come back as strong as it has. People love to see art. They love to hold it in their hands. I mean, there's something to that. And again, it brings filmmaking back to you meeting the fans, building up your general audience, selling. This is a Blu-ray that I made. I'll sell it to you. You go on streaming, maybe your film is bought by the distributor, maybe they just take it. But in regards to your view per payment, that doesn't work that way. You're not getting a check in the mail for so many views. So again, on a certain budget level, this level of filmmaking doesn't work in regards to the selling it yourself. But on a lower budget level, it really can, and you can see where you are. You can see what the fans like, and again, control the finances, control the marketing. Because one of the most heartbreaking things about making a movie and then going with any distributor is when that film does not have the marketing budget or even the heart put into promoting the movie the way that you would.
Yeah.
So at the least on a certain budget level, this is a way for you to be able to say, I know what to say about my movie. I know who I think is going to want to see it, and I'm going to champion that. So that's something that we've seen going on that seems to work for certain filmmakers. Not everybody, but certain filmmakers, it really does work.
Yeah, I mean, a real life example of that I've got, like The Barn 2 played locally to me a few months back, and it was an outdoor screening. I went to go watch it, and Justin and some of the folks with the film were there. They had set up a table at the back of the screening, and they were selling merch on the table. I've got like a squishy little corn guy back on the character from the film behind me. And I, after the film ended, I stood in line like a band groupie, just waiting to go up to the merch table and say, "Oh, what do you have?" And I liked your film.
Great.
And I've seen. So, I mean, there definitely is that element for genre. And if you think about like how popular horror conventions are and things of that nature, people want to have that interactive experience. They want to bring some little trinket home and, meet the people from the films and feel like they are kind of a part of that experience that you can't get in any other way other than going up to somebody and talking to them, and after you've seen their movie and telling them how much you liked it, and buying their merch and buying their movie and bringing their DVD to them that you've purchased for them to sign in person. That's the type of experience that fans, can't get sitting at home streaming film.
That makes sense.
As a filmmaker, no one can sell your movie like you can. No one can sell yourself like you can. And if you can put yourself in a position to do that, even in the short term, because there's nothing like connecting with fans on a personal level. So even once you do go to the route or to the level to where you're on Shudder or Screenbox or maybe even something bigger, you have built up that fan base to where they want to know what you're doing next. They're not just seeing your film on Shudder and saying, "Oh, what's this?" They're looking for you and saying, "What has he done next? Oh, it's on Shudder. Okay, we're going over here." And Shudder knows that too. When they have a filmmaker that they know that people are looking to see what they're going to do next, that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So it's always important, regardless of what route you go, that you try to connect with the fans and at least have some control over your art and how it's promoted.
Yeah. I know when Mad God was the new big thing on Shudder, they never just called it Mad God. It was always Phil Tippett's Mad God.
Sure.
And bringing up the filmmaker's name, and that's cool. And you guys are not the first guests I've had on to talk about The Barn. So I guess I really need to go see that and see The Barn 2 as soon as it's available to me. And get in contact with the filmmakers of that and try to get them on the show too.
They're fantastic. Those guys. Yeah. Cool.
Well, I will try to contact them in some way. Thank you all so much for coming on and talking about all of this. This has been really interesting and fun for me, at least. I hope you guys have had a good time as well. And do you have any social media or websites or anything? I know you mentioned thegarthmanor.com earlier. Do you have anything like that you'd like to direct listeners to?
I'm not sure when this is going to air, but Guts is actually nominated for a Fangoria Chainsaw Award right now. And it's for Best Short, and voting ends on February 27th at midnight.
Ooh, yeah, I typically put out one interview a month at the first Friday of the month, so it's too late for February, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well,
I'll mention that on Twitter.
Okay.
Awesome. Stacey, how about you?
Real quick, all of a lot of Chris's shorts are on the Garth Manor website, but Chris has a Vimeo page too where you can see a lot of his stuff, and Alter's put some of his stuff out as well.
Cool.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can see Chris's films, but most of them are online, and then I'm sure Chris has got some great plans for the new one. We forgot about the zombies after it does its festival run.
Yeah, that's a very evocative title. Really has me like guessing as to what it might be about. Stacey, anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I think Nevermore Film Festival is going to have just ended by the time this gets released. It's February 24th through 26th this month in Durham, and I'll be working on Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio. That is late October, so later this year. And then otherwise, I will be just hopefully publishing some stuff on the Garth Manor website soon, so I can be found in a few different places.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I look forward to watching We Forgot About the Zombies.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
This was great.